Marisol Rivera had spent nearly a decade working in silence, scrubbing marble floors, folding sheets crisp as glass, and caring for the fragile twin sons of Alden Carrington, one of America's most powerful billionaires. She never raised her voice, never asked for more than her pay, never forgot why she was there: to send money home to her family, to give her younger sister a chance at college, to keep hope alive in places where dreams often die. But in a single night, her loyalty was twisted into betrayal. Alden accused her of stealing the only medicine that kept his delicate twin boys alive, glass vials no larger than a child's thumb, each worth tens of thousands of dollars, a fortune on the black market. And in the cold light of morning, she was dragged into court to face charges that could ruin her forever. No lawyer, no defense. Just one woman standing against a man whose wealth could buy the truth and bury it at the same time. The courtroom murmured as the judge's gavel struck. The billionaire's voice thundered. Reporters scribbled down her shame. And Marisol stood there trembling, clutching her hands, whispering prayers only she could hear. It seemed her fate was sealed, until the double doors creaked open, and the very sons she was accused of betraying appeared before the court. Every head turned, every breath froze, and what they revealed would tear the mask off an empire of lies. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But as the twins' voices echoed through that courtroom, a storm of questions rose in the minds of everyone watching. Had Marisol Rivera really betrayed the very children she had raised as her own, children she had sung to sleep, comforted through sickness and protected like a mother? Or was there something far more complicated behind Alden Carrington's swift and merciless accusation? Why was a man with limitless resources so eager to drag a maid, a woman with no power and no lawyer, into the public eye? And what truth did those fragile twins, his own sons, risk everything to reveal when they appeared at the very moment Marisol's hope was gone? The answers would not only shake the courtroom but would ripple through every boardroom, every newspaper, and every family who ever wondered how far money can go in controlling the truth. By the end, you'll see why this case became one of the most shocking trials in modern history. Before that day in court, Marisol Rivera was known only as the quiet maid in the Carrington estate, the one who worked harder than anyone else, yet spoke less than anyone dared. She was disciplined to the core, never cutting corners, never compromising her morals even when temptation whispered. Every dollar she earned went back home, to a family who depended on her strength more than they ever admitted. But her devotion inside the Carrington household was something money couldn't measure. Marisol became the unseen mother in the shadows, nights spent by the twins' bedside, rocking them through fevers, whispering hope when doctors predicted only pain, slipping prayers into the silence when medicine seemed to fail. She endured exhaustion, loneliness, and sacrifice without ever asking for recognition, because in her eyes, the boys were worth more than her own comfort. Yet beneath this devotion lingered a secret tension that few ever knew. Alden Carrington himself had made advances toward her. She turned him down firmly, quietly, without shame, but that rejection was a wound to a man who measured himself by power. To Marisol, it was an act of discipline, of self-respect. To Alden, it was humiliation, and humiliation was something his pride could never forgive. For Alden Carrington, image was everything. To the world of men who admired his empire, he was the strategist who outplayed rivals and never lost a battle. To women who observed his life from afar, he was the cold, untouchable figure whose eyes betrayed no warmth, a father who seemed more committed to controlling an empire than raising his sons. His wealth had built walls so high that truth itself struggled to escape. When the moment came to accuse Marisol, he did so not just with anger, but with calculation, knowing that the weight of his name alone could bury her in shame. And then there were the twins, frail, fragile, born into privilege but chained by illness. Their bodies were weak, but their spirits were bound to Marisol in a way their father never saw. To them, she was not just a maid but a protector, a second mother, the one who stayed when others left. They were seen as victims of disease, yes, but in the shadows of that courtroom storm, they were about to become something more. Unexpected heroes who would risk everything to speak the truth. Yet as their bond deepened, so too did the danger, because no amount of love could protect Marisol Rivera when power and pride turned against her. It began with whispers in the Carrington mansion, whispers that grew into accusation. A single missing dose of the boy's medicine turned into 2, and then more. By the time the bottles were counted, panic had taken root. To Alden Carrington, it was the perfect moment to strike. In the dead of night, he summoned Marisol Rivera to the study, the dim light from the fireplace stretching shadows across his face. His voice was calm but sharp enough to cut. "The medicine is gone. You've been here every night. Who else could it be?" Marisol's heart pounded as she tried to steady her breath. She shook her head, tears pressing against her eyes, and whispered, "I would never harm them. They are like my own children." But Alden stepped closer, his words laced with cruelty. "No one will believe you. I am Alden Carrington. You are just the maid." It was not just an accusation. It was intimidation, the raw display of power against a woman with no shield. For Marisol, the moment was shattering. To women who hear her story, it is the heartbreak of being falsely accused, of devotion twisted into betrayal. For men, it is a lesson in ruthless strategy, watching a billionaire bend truth as if it were a weapon to maintain his grip on power. That night, Marisol begged him to see reason, to remember the years she had given to his sons. But Alden was unmoved. His empire was built on control, and now controlling her. By dawn, every headline in the city painted Marisol Rivera as a thief, a traitor, a monster hiding behind a maid's apron. And the world was ready to believe it. The accusation spread like wildfire. By morning, Marisol Rivera's face was on every television screen in America. Anchors speculated about the so-called betrayal of a trusted maid, neighbors whispered in disbelief, and social media erupted with judgment. Hashtags with her name trended, most of them cruel, some pitying but almost none believing she was innocent. To the public, she was already guilty. The police wasted no time. Their questions were cold, their tone sharp. Every answer Marisol gave seemed to dig her deeper into a hole she could not climb out of. Reports were filed, evidence photographed, chains of custody logged. Investigators combed through access lists and timetables, pointing out the same fact again and again. She had been the one closest to the medicine, the one with the key, the one trusted to handle every dose. For a moment, it seemed as though other suspects might emerge. Doctors who had overseen the treatments were briefly mentioned but quickly cleared. Delivery workers who came through the mansion gates were questioned but ruled out. Even members of the household staff with access to the restricted storage area were investigated, but every lead ended the same way. Back at Marisol. She was the last person between the twins and their fragile health, and to outsiders, that made her the perfect suspect. To Alden Carrington, it was a victory taking shape before his eyes. He stood untouchable, his influence casting a long shadow over the case. The narrative suited him, the loyal maid exposed as a thief, a betrayal that fit neatly into headlines and scandal columns. But for Marisol, it was devastation. Her years of sacrifice were erased in a single accusation. Her sleepless nights caring for the boys, her quiet prayers during their worst episodes, her refusal to abandon them. Even those memories could not shield her now. With no money for a lawyer, no allies willing to stand beside her, and the weight of a billionaire's word crushing her, Marisol Rivera walked into the courtroom alone. The cameras flashed, the whispers grew louder, and she braced herself for the fight of her life. The courtroom was heavy with silence, broken only by the shuffle of papers and the low hum of reporters typing furiously from the gallery. At the front, Alden Carrington sat tall beside his team of high-priced attorneys, his expression calm, almost smug. To him, the outcome was certain. His reputation, his wealth, and his influence were enough to drown out whatever faint protests Marisol Rivera could muster. And there she was, alone, No lawyer, no ally, standing in the shadow of a man whose word carried more weight than her entire life story. One by one, testimonies stacked against her. Experts confirmed the missing doses. Staff members recalled Alden's accusations. Every voice added another stone to the wall, closing her in. And then it happened. The double doors at the back of the courtroom swung open with a sudden force that made every head turn. Gasps rippled through the crowd as two wheelchairs appeared, side by side. It was the twins. Frail, pale, and visibly weak but determined, they had come. Behind them was the family chauffeur, his face tense with fear. Only later would the truth emerge. The boys had secretly called him from their room. Their voices were shaky but firm. "If you don't take us, we'll tell Dad you refused. Please, we have to go." It wasn't a polished threat. It was desperation, the kind only children can carry when they know time is running out. The room froze. Alden's attorneys shifted uncomfortably. Reporters whispered in disbelief. Marisol's eyes widened, tears already forming as she realized the impossible had happened. The very boys she had cared for, the children who knew her love better than anyone, had come to stand by her side. The judge banged his gavel, demanding order, but the twins refused to be silenced. And when the judge allowed them to speak, the truth they carried was heavier than anyone expected, for they had seen the real intruders, masked men who slipped into their home that night. Marisol was innocent, and now the world would finally hear it. The courtroom had never been so silent. The judge adjusted his glasses, the jury leaned forward, and the air seemed to thicken with every second. The twins, pale, frail, yet determined, sat side by side in their wheelchairs. Reporters scribbled, cameras clicked, and across the aisle, Alden Carrington folded his arms, confident his empire of influence would stand unshaken. But then the first boy spoke, his voice small yet steady. "Mama Marisol never stole the medicine. She was the one who reminded us every night to take it. She cared about us when no one else did." Gasps rippled through the room. His brother leaned forward, his eyes darting nervously toward their father before settling back on the judge. We saw men that night. They had masks. They took the medicine. Mama Marisol wasn't there. She didn't do it." Murmurs spread quickly, unraveling the certainty of Marisol's guilt. The judge leaned closer. "Is there anything else you wish to say?" The boy hesitated, glancing at his father again, then whispered, "Daddy was upset with Mama Marisol. Maybe that's why he's angry. But she didn't do this." The statement stunned the courtroom. Not a direct accusation, but enough to plant a seed of doubt. Alden's face tightened, his jaw flexing as if the very walls were closing in. The judge turned toward Marisol. "Do you wish to respond to this?" Her hands trembled, but her voice was calm, measured, filled with grace. "Your Honor, I have nothing against Mr. Carrington. I only ever wanted to do my work, to take care of the boys. There were times when he showed an interest I could not return. But I never wanted that to cause him shame. Nor do I want to stand here and dishonor him. My only concern has always been these children." Her restraint, her refusal to drag Alden through the mud when she had every right to, landed heavier than any accusation could have. For the first time, Alden Carrington lowered his gaze, not out of defeat, but out of something rarer: respect. The judge's gavel struck. "This testimony cannot be ignored. A full investigation will proceed immediately. For now, Miss Rivera, you are free." And just like that, the tide turned. Marisol Rivera, once painted as a criminal, was vindicated, not by lawyers or power, but by the loyalty of two fragile voices and her own quiet dignity. This was never just about missing medicine. It was about truth, power, and the courage of one woman to stand alone until the fragile voices of two children broke the silence. Yet even with Marisol Rivera cleared, the question lingers like a shadow in the corners of the courtroom. Was justice truly served? Or was this only the beginning of another battle within the Carrington family? The verdict brought relief, but it also left behind unease. Alden Carrington's wealth and influence had not vanished with a single ruling, and the quiet respect he showed in the final moments may have concealed something far more dangerous. Could Marisol ever be truly safe after challenging a man whose reach seemed endless? What do you think? Was this the end of her struggle, or only the beginning? Let us know in the comments, and if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for tomorrow's plot.